Hello and welcome to the Point to Rise show. This is your host, Suzanne Prochelle, former international ballerina that found her passion in mindset, business, and technology, and is today the founder of Rise Media. It is my purpose to use all the experiences of my past to create a better, financially sustainable future for the performing arts industry. And that starts with every single one of us. I believe that being you is your superpower. And I am here to guide you, empower you, inspire you, and give you all the resources you need to rise above what you think you're capable of. Every week, I'll bring you 3 shows featuring guests, collaboration, and mini episodes to ensure that you have the support in your journey as a performer. I want you to know that you are not alone. Stop chasing and start creating. Your success starts now, here with you. So let's go. Hello and welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I am so grateful for you taking the time to listen to our conversation today. Today's guest is Jessica Rivera. Now, Jessica and I met in a networking group that we're both part of. And I connected with her and instantly. She has this incredible energy and aura around her that I thought I have to interview her, and I would love to share her energy with you because just by listening to her and how she moved and how she introduced herself, I actually learned something around leadership. So Jessica is a business and mindset coach who is based in New York. She helps entrepreneurs elevate their leadership and communication so they can increase productivity, remove roadblocks in their business, and increase performance in themselves and others. She's extremely passionate about empowering people and helping them to evolve their mindset, which results in positive impacts on business goals and life as a whole. Her passion has led her to become certified in several Franklin Covey programs, such as 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, which, by the way, is a really, really great book to read, Leading at Speed of Trust, and 6 Critical Practices for Leading a Team, as well as becoming a certified mentor. So in today's episode, we talk about leadership, self-leadership, why it is important, and why it is important to release control to others so you can lead yourself and others better. Something that I feel I'm actually really passionate about and talking about is something that within the performing arts is definitely a huge opportunity. So thank you for tuning in. Enjoy this conversation. And as always, please share whatever your biggest takeaway is. Subscribe to this podcast and share it with one person that you truly believe should hear this episode. Without further ado, here's our conversation. Jessica, thank you so much for being here. I'm so delighted to have this conversation about leadership with you today.
Thank you so much for having me. I am delighted that we met we're building community and we met in a room and we just connected. And thank you so much for having me here.
Yes, I have to say that I immediately connected with your energy that you put out and your openness that's just you, which leads me actually to my next question. So what I found is that so many times we look at resumes and that's how we identify ourselves and what we have achieved, right? But that's not all of us. So what's that other part that is not on your resume? Who's Jessica? Like, what does she love? What's her superpower? What are her struggles?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So much to unpack there. So first of all, thank you for me. It's actually something that I've worked on. It wasn't something that came natural. I was very guarded. I grew up in New York. I was tough. I didn't want to show emotion. And that's something I used to look at people and say, wow, I can't believe they're saying that about themselves. I can't believe they're sharing that story. And what I realized was, oh, wait a minute, I love people like that. Why am I not more like that? And that's where those real connections started to happen. Now, of course, I had connections throughout my whole life, but I felt as though if they weren't my inner circle, my guards were up. And actually, maybe even my inner circle felt guards were up. And so, kind of talking about my struggles, I had my first child at 19. I had extremely loving family and parents, but I still wanted to. I don't know where this really comes from. I haven't done the inner deep work about it because I'm okay with it. But I've always felt like I got this. I could do it on my own. I don't need anybody. Which it's funny. Fast forward, I had 2 kids. I was in my early 30s, and I remember I was telling my sister a story, and I said, "Sure, I can do everything on my own, but who wants to do everything on their own?" And she said to me, "Well, you certainly don't act like you need help." Yeah, yeah. So when she said that to me, I was like, "Oh, I guess I don't." Like, and how would they know that I need help or that I'm struggling or if I'm not verbalizing it? And so that kind of started my process of really opening up. I always loved self-help books and I loved people's stories of how they started in one place and grew. And realized, you know what, I need to be more like that.
Okay. So, well, let's go there. Because on your social media, you talk about time and how we're taking time back and how we're doing that, which actually means we actually have to have the courage to ask for help. So talk to that a little bit. Why is it hard to ask for help? Why was it hard for you to ask for help? And then what are we actually gaining when
Mhm.
we're allowing ourselves to ask for help?
Thank you so much for asking that question because it coincidentally, I actually just developed a training and it is part of my leadership accelerator, but I also do corporate training and I just developed the effective delegation training that I'm implementing next week. And so what I've done this in my coaching groups and we ask and we kind of go around the table, why is it difficult for us to ask for help? There's so many reasons. Number one, and I remember a therapist told me this one time, like that I was controlling. And I said, controlling? I'm cool. I'm chill. I'm chill vibes. He's like, well, not based on the story you just told me. So probably number one reason why we don't delegate is because we want to control it, right? We want to control everything. Also, many times we're afraid to be vulnerable and say, we don't know. We don't want we don't want to have to ask for help, right? We don't want to feel vulnerable and say, oh, I can't do this all on my own. So, we're controlling. We want to make sure we can do it all on our own. If we're the boss, especially if we're the leader, we don't want other people to think that they're smarter than us. There are so many reasons why we don't ask for help when we need it, but a lot of it goes back to vulnerability and feeling like you're not enough.
Exactly. And when you bring that into leadership, these kind of traumas of not feeling enough, then you're actually not a leader, you're a manager, you start controlling others, right? Let's pivot into leadership because it's your specialty. You're the expert in this. Can you give us maybe a little bit of a what is leadership? Where did it come from? Like how did we describe leadership, let's say in the 80s or 90s, and what has it actually evolved into right now?
Yeah, so I think when we thought of leaders before, it's kind of like, Fidel, right? You think of a dictator. You like, it's my way or the highway. I made the company, I run the company, you do what I say, or I'm the parent and you do what I say, right? And many times it was do as I say, not as I do. So I may display bad behavior, but hey, don't do what I do. And so when you think about it that way, even as a child or a young person in business, that just didn't sound right. It didn't feel right and it didn't sound right. And so oftentimes we rebelled against that at work and at home. And I think the new style of leadership, which is more that coaching style, right? That let's talk about it. I may not have all of the answers. You have the answers within you. It's my job to get them out, right? Like I think about coaching in sports. I think sports is a really good thing to kind of look at, right? So many coaches have not even done the job that they're coaching to, right? So we don't have to have necessarily been the CEO of the Fortune 500 company, but I can help coach you to get everything you need out. And so that style of management, when you have a team, and you are making them feel that inclusive and creating that psychological safety where we're in a table, nobody's above each other. Sure, I may have the title, I may be at a different pay grade, but no one's above each other. We are all equals. We're all human. And I think when you break it down, like we're all just human beings, that things can really be a lot easier than we make them because we put titles and hierarchy and ego in the way.
Okay. So hierarchy, ego, that used to be the way how companies were run, right? And I think we're moving further and further away from it because we have realized that when we're actually removing the ego and understanding that who and what we are right now, we're worthy of pitching and being capable of getting the best out of people, we are actually are creating a higher form of organization of world altogether. Now, when you with your clients, let's talk about a little bit. What's like the top three things that you find that they're coming to you with that they may see as obstacles that are in
Yeah.
their way of leading and not managing?
Yeah. I want to bring up one other thing that you said. Yes. When you're creating that safe space for your team, they're better organizations, but I will also say there's higher profits. There are higher profits.
Yes.
So, some old school leaders, managers, bosses, founders feel like, yeah, but what it's all fuzzy and nice and warm and hugs, right? But what about the money? Well, guess what? The money comes too. The money comes too. Just because you're nice doesn't mean there isn't accountability. Just because you're kind doesn't mean you're not candid and straightforward, right? So there is a balance there. And I'm the first one to say, I'm going to give people the benefit of the doubt. But yes, we are looking at profits also, right? That is part of it. So I just wanted to put that out there because many times they're like, okay, yeah, hugs and flowers and rainbows, that's great. But what about the money?
Right. Can I just I
Yeah.
want to interject something and that's for particularly this audience because we in business, in the arts, sometimes see, well, if we're chasing after the money, that means we're actually not great people. We're not good. We're just after the profit, which is yet another belief that has, made its way from generation to generation. And it's actually not the truth because time has already shown us, we're just not open to seeing it, that when you actually invest in your team, when you stop managing and start serving, then the outcome, the profitability, the profit, the money at the end and the bottom line is growing continuously. And I think Google is a prime example of that yeah. So
I could completely agree. I wholeheartedly agree with you. And while, for those people who think money is evil, money still gives you freedom. Money still gives you less stress. Money's not going to, give you happiness, but it will alleviate stress. It will help you enjoy and give you more time with your family. And so, to your point, it's a limiting belief.
oh, absolutely. I mean, everything that we're putting in our ways from completely removing our ego, our limiting beliefs. Like it is what it is, right? So where were we? What question did I ask you? I forgot,
So
Jessica.
you asked me, what do my clients typically come to me
Right.
for?
Perfect.
And so often recently, a lot of them have been coming to me for really being able to communicate to their teams, right? They do not want to be stressed and have to say the same thing over and over again, or feel as though they're coming down on people. How to find that balance of having that kind candor, right? So many times managers, they're telling their people what to do and the people aren't doing it. The team isn't doing it. And there's a frustration built. They want to be nice, so they don't say anything. And so how do you communicate in a way and really have a structure on your team where you're communicating the value of the project, what needs to be done, and you're not getting frustrated. People are respecting you. There's a disconnect there. So it's typically the way they communicate and when they're under stress, how they behave under stress. So we've worked through that. A lot of other clients have come to me for strategy. They want to figure out, okay, I have a lot of ideas in my mind. I know I'm a good leader, but I feel like I'm all over the place, right? Lots of ideas. Don't, they're in analysis paralysis and they don't move forward. And so many clients come to me for that. And then lastly, many people have come to me for they want to show up. They want to show up as their best self, right? And so to your point, you were saying, "Oh, I met you and you were just so authentic and you're so real, but you still kind of like I still people have told me I still have like a no nonsense vibe about me, like loving but no nonsense." And like that's what they want, right? They want to be able to make people feel good about themselves, make people feel open around them, but then also still kind of get to the point and be able to execute. And so really that has a lot to do with self-leadership and confidence.
Let's talk about self leadership because I feel it is highly underestimated. How would you define self leadership? What is that for you?
Yeah. So self-leadership, self-trust, and confidence, they're all cousins. And so I think when we start second guessing ourselves, that's where that doubt, that's where all those limiting beliefs continue to creep up.
Mm.
And so when we can be okay with who we are, what we say, stop judging ourselves because we don't realize every time we complain about somebody else and judge somebody else, we're really judging ourselves. I remember, I think I may have first heard that in Eckhart Tolle's book, The Awakening. And I'm like, well, I don't know if I buy into that. Like, I wasn't sure about that concept. I wasn't sure if I really bought into that. And then the more I started thinking about it, I'm like, oh wow, yeah, I am judging myself here. I am judging myself there. I'm judging if other people are judging me. You know, I'm
Yeah.
too busy thinking about, wait, what is this person thinking about? What I'm wearing, what I'm dressing, what I said. I'm thinking about what I said in the meeting for days and weeks after me while that person doesn't even remember. And so when you really start being comfortable in your own skin, comfortable with yourself, comfortable with making mistakes, knowing that you learn from them, knowing that you're continuing to grow and you're doing the best that you can in the moment, that's where that authenticity starts really showing up. And when you can hold yourself accountable, and this is a huge one, because I know, think about even for yourself, even for myself, many times in the past, there were things that I would do for other people. No problem. I'm doing exactly what I said I'm going to do. You can depend on me. But when I want to do something for myself, that goes on the back burner. And when you start holding yourself accountable to you, ooh, that's when that self leadership really starts to show up. And that's when you start to show up for yourself, you show up for others even more, but you have to show up for you first.
Mm, that's so good. And it took me so long to understand the concept. It took so long for me to buy into it and not have that consistent resistance. And truly, honestly, the resistance and the default always shows up when it gets really stressful because
Yes.
it still feels easier to serve everybody else but me. And
Yeah.
we haven't yet really understood that if we're not putting ourselves first, if we're not leading ourselves the way, then how are we going to actually have the right style of leadership for everybody else?
Oh, oh
It's
my
not,
gosh.
you
Right.
need to show up as who you want to become first before you actually become that person. We just think that, oh, well, it's gonna come. It's gonna just knock on the door and just we absorb it and then there we are. No, that's not what it is, right? We put so much empathy behind acquiring certain skills, but we do not understand that we
Yeah.
actually making the acquisition of these skills so much harder by not leading ourselves.
So think about this, right? So we'll show up for somebody else first, right? So what does that mean? We get a boost, right? We get instant gratification. If you tell me, "Hey, Jess, I need your help on something," and I'm like, "Yes, I'm going to put whatever I was planning on doing on the back burner because I'm going to help you." That makes me feel good. That's my ego boost. Okay. doing something for myself, there's no reward. There's nobody to pat me on the back. And so when we start checking in on ourselves, like, oh, wait a second, am I doing that just for the accolades, just for the rewards, just for the ego? And then I'm putting myself on the back burner, and we don't realize what that's actually doing to ourselves. That, we've been taught that we have to serve others because doing it for ourselves is selfish, right? Going to the spa for myself versus helping you, well, that's selfish. But in the reality is maybe I need that break because that break is going to help me show up for others even better, right? So we really have to we need that paradigm shift to understand that loving on ourselves, putting ourselves first is not selfish. And I really had an epiphany one day when I was waking up at like 3 o'clock in the morning to catch a flight for work. And I had started going to the gym, and I'm not a morning person. And I never went to like the 6 a.m. classes. I would go after work. And then sometimes if I was busy, then I wouldn't go. And so I remember I'm like, wait a second. I get to the airport, it's like 5 in the morning. And I'm like, if I can wake up this early for work, why wouldn't I do it for myself?
Was so good.
It seems so simple, but I was like, poof, like the light bulb just went off. Like, yes, do it for yourself.
And we're not doing it for ourselves because it is so much easier to negotiate ourselves out of it. Like we just have to be accountable to me. And I'm like, okay, I'm okay. I'm choosing comfort over discipline right now versus having to justify to your boss saying, hey, nah, that was so much more comfortable. I'll stay there. And then the consequences on the other hand, they're just more, I would say, transparent because you're gonna almost like lose your job where if you not show up for yourself, the consequences are, how do you say it? They don't show up right away.
Yeah, right, right. But we don't realize that those consequences are huge. They're huge. And those rewards are even bigger when we start holding ourselves accountable and start leading ourselves the way we expect others to show up for us, right? And the way we expect the way we do show up for others. And so, yeah, it's so important. Self-leadership is really something that, like you said, is undervalued.
Mm. And undertaught, in my opinion, too. I mean, if we're looking at our children, you have children, I have children, it's not something that's being taught at all. And it is such a tremendous life skill that you should be equipped with. When, when the two suitcases stand in front of your door and you're 18 and you want to leave. I
Such an
remember
important conversation.
with
That's such an important conversation. Such an important conversation because, there's those moms, right? There's the tiger mom, what is it? The hover mom, and then like the hippie mom. And so, the tiger mom's going to control everything. And then the hover mom is hovering. And I will tell you, I was guilty. I was very guilty of being the hover mom. I wasn't controlling. I thought I wasn't controlling everything, but I was there every step of the way. If you need me, hey, I'm here. And looking back, I wish I had hippie parents, right? That you can figure it out and we're here to pick you up if you need us. And that's how I became so self-sufficient. And you think you want to love on your kids and you want to be there and help them, but definitely the better way is to teach them those self-leadership skills, allow them to make those decisions on their own, let them know they have it, they can do it, and they don't have to lean on you as much as you would like them to.
right as you would like them to. The removal of ego is so important, even
Yeah.
parenthood. Oh my goodness. Um, let's you have such a special energy about you. Like I cannot put my fingers on it, but it is very rejuvenating and filling my cup. So I just want to shout that out if you're not.
Oh, you're gonna make me cry. You're gonna make
Let's pivot into community. So the reason I'm saying that is that for the longest time I have been resistant to evolve myself into women communities. Okay, because I had the story and the experience, of course, that women are backstabbing, denying, success seeking individuals that, will hurt me more than they will love me. And I didn't learn until 2018, I have to say, that that wasn't true and that my perception was just that, my perception. And I had gathered enough evidence to make it my truth. However, I'd love to see what your experience was in that space, particularly when, you heard from your friends that you were guarded, New York City, women in a leadership position, training leaders. Like, talk to me about that.
Okay, so many stories, so many stories. At first, in my mind, you're asking, I'm listening to you, and I'm thinking, oh well, not so much when I was younger, but and then I said, oh wait a second, yes, yes, my whole life, my whole life, I've had a similar scenario where I've never spoken about this before, but when I was younger, growing up in New York, I actually got into a lot of fights, like physical altercations.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
it's
Okay. Keep
embarrassing.
going.
It's embarrassing, but it's true. I remember I was 4th grade. I'm gonna take us back to the 4th grade. I remember my first physical altercation was with a good girlfriend, and I still remember her name and everything. And throughout my life in junior high school and high school, I would always say like, I'm not a fighter, but if you want to fight, I remember I told my cousin to teach me how to fight because they would pick on me, and so I think that's now that I'm thinking about it, that's one of the reasons on why I got so, tough, I guess. So yes, I used to get into physical altercations. And then throughout when I got older, my late teens, early 20s, I had a huge group of friends. I mean, a lot of girlfriends, like 8, 9, 10 of us. And I felt betrayed and backstabbed, and the whole group kind of split apart. Right. And then fast forward to work, there were women on my team that I felt backstabbed me. My boss, one of my bosses that I had for a very long time, she was a raging bitch.
Yeah.
And she was not very nice to me. I mean, she was not very nice to a lot of people. I will say that. So I wasn't special. She wasn't nice to a lot of people. And I think there were a lot of things I really liked and respected about her, if I'm being fair, but she was very tough. She was very, very tough, particularly on me for whatever reason. Um, but with all of that said, I've also had the flip side. Women really supporting me, women really being there for me. I have a sister. Her and I are like yin and yang. I'm so close to her. So when I started, I never felt like, oh, women are a certain way. I felt some people are like that and some people are not. That's kind of just that's always been my take on it because I can't be the only good person in the world, right? My sister, who I love to death, she can't be the only good person in the world. And so I never took it as like a woman thing or not a woman thing. But I will say it did have me guarded. It did definitely had me guarded across the board. But as I've gotten older, as you were saying, well, what I've realized is that I also needed to put those guards down and be very intentional about my relationships and treat others the way I wanted to be treated, right? And hey, you may not give me what I want, what I gave you back, but somebody else is going to give me that, right? So we're all kind of just filling each other's cup in the most loving and beautiful way. And when I started being really intentional with my relationships, really intentional with catching up and creating time, it's because as you get older, businesses, kids, life. I mean, we have to schedule lunch a month out, right? But really being intentional about my time and pouring into people. Then, oh, just things started clicking. And in my relationships with women and with men, because I actually have a lot of guy friends and business associates, and I work with tons of men, my relationships got very, very deep and really just beautiful. But in community, it can be scary. It can definitely be scary, especially if I went to in sometime this year, I went to a meeting and I didn't know one person in the room. And I remember when I went into sales, when I first got into sales in my early 30s, I went to a conference and didn't know one person in the room. It is scary. It's still scary. It feels weird to go up to somebody you don't know and say, hey, my name is, but you just never know who you're going to meet, and beautiful relationships can come out of that.
So agreed. I think that's what I learned the quickest is that it's not it's not about leaning into that fear of, oh my goodness, what are they gonna think of me? But it's all about, hey, what do I have to lose? And we don't have anything to lose. We only have to gain, right? Like showing up anywhere and everywhere with the intention to who knows who I'm going to meet. Maybe my next business partner is in that. Maybe my next coach or my next client is in there. Maybe my new community members are in here. And I think that that fear lets us, well, just stand in a corner and not act.
It holds us back. And it's terrible because to your point, not only may your next client, your next best friend might be in the room, your next sponsor, right? The person who's going to speak well about you in rooms that you are not in, they might be in that room. And so you just never know who you're going to meet. And I think when you are just open to possibilities, that's when miracles happen.
Mm.
That's when the beauty of life starts to happen.
Oh, absolutely. Beautiful. Okay, Jessica, where can we find you? Like, where on what kind of social media platform are you most active? What's your favorite? Tell us all about it.
So my favorite is Instagram. I love Instagram. You can find me at Coach Jessica Rivera on IG. I'm there all the time. Hang out in my stories. I go live, but I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn as well, but I don't really go live or anything on there. So yeah, I'd love for people to come hang out with me there. I am starting my new cohort of the Leadership Accelerator. It kicks off on June 29th. So yeah, it's always a really small group. So I'm super excited to get that kicked off. And so, yeah,
Awesome. Last question. If you could meet your 16-year-old self and she would sit down and actually listen to you, okay, let's just put that right down there. No,
yeah,
what would you tell her?
I would tell her number one, invest in real estate. When you get any kind of money, please invest in real estate. I will say that part, but I will, especially in New York, especially in Brooklyn. But okay, I will also say that, and oh, it's so upsetting because my father used to tell us this actually, that we have so much power. We have so much power more. Oh, you're gonna get me.
Go ahead. We cry here all the time. I do.
Oh, sorry. So he's tell us, especially the girls, like his daughters, or all his kids, but especially his daughters, that we have so much power and that if we just love ourselves first, everything else will come.
Oh, honey, that's so beautiful. Well, I wish my parents would have ever said that. So big shout out to your daddy, wherever he is.
Yeah. Yeah. My parents are still together. They just celebrated their 50th anniversary last month.
Oh,
Yeah.
congratulations.
Yeah. Yeah. So my dad is amazing, but I will tell you, my 16-year-old self did not listen to him. So there's that part.
I mean, why would we? Because we knew it all better back then.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Plus, I would say, plus, dad, you're just my dad. Like, you don't have
Right.
anything. So, yes.
Yeah. Oh, what a gift, though. You should send him this.
Oh, I,
Right.
I will. I will.
I know I said this is my last question, but this is such a big point that you brought up here in terms of power. And here's what I learned about being powerful or really leaning into our own power. I didn't know that I had such negative thoughts around what power actually meant. I thought power means controlling others. I thought power is only going to be used to do something bad to other people. And therefore, I never even dare to subconsciously, of course, to tap into what I'm capable of, into my power. And I think so many other people are still in that kind of paradigm that being powerful equals being bad and controlling. What is yeah, I,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely not. And I don't believe that's what he meant either. I think he meant like power to do whatever you want. Power to the truth is to have anything you want, any relationship you want, anything you want in life. That's how I think he meant it because he always said like love yourself first. like, go get a life. He would like tell us to like have a life, like not just do nothing, right? Go achieve. And that's what he means by power. You have the power to do anything you want. It's not about controlling others. It's more about tapping into the power within.
Yeah, exactly. And so let me just set this straight. Like, I don't think that way either anymore. I believe being powerful means having the power to create anything and everything we want. Everything that we need is actually inside us. However, so many people don't lean into their actual power because they have the belief of power equaling something bad. And that's why I wanted to give your dad a shout out for being such a good role model and encouraging you to find your own power because we don't hear that very often.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
still not. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. This
oh
is
my gosh. It's so great.
awesome.
You had an Oprah moment and you made me cry.
Okay. I'm
But thank you
sorry.
for that. Thank you for that. No, thank you for that.
Thank you for what you're doing, Jessica. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate you being here and sharing your wisdom and your love and your power. So go follow her. Her Instagram is really quite something. There's so many nuggets in there, so much to learn. And we will see you next time. Thank you for listening.
No, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. If this message resonates with you, please pass it on to someone who needs to hear this right now. And if you like what you've heard, your feedback will go a very long way. If you just take 30 seconds and leave me a 5-star review, that would mean the world to me. Till next time, point at yourself to rise to all that you are capable of.